Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. This is the future of operational excellence, enabling a resilient, data-enabled workforce at scale. My name is Gabe. I'm with Cognite, and I'll be moderating our presentation today, and I'm really excited for our panelists. Now, before we kick the content off, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. First, we will be recording this webinar, so if you've got someone you want to send it to, if you want to revisit some of the topics, we will be sending out an email after the fact, and you can rewatch it then. Additionally, we love taking questions. So if you have a question or want to follow up with one of the presenters, please do put your question in the question box here in Zoom, and we will try at the very end to get through as many questions as possible. Now, without further ado, I do want to kick off our content here. We're presenting this today more as a panel discussion, so we do have some content and slides, but we've got a great panel for you. So, Torgrim, do you mind giving a quick introduction?
Sure, I'm Torgrim Aas. I'm heading technical sales in Cognite Americas.
Great to have you. Natalia?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Natalia Klavke. I'm EVP of Energy and Sustainability at Radix.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, Andrew?
Yeah, hi, thank you, Gabe. Andrew Penton with Celanese. I look after two areas of our organization providing IT and digital services. One is manufacturing, which I think most of you folks today are here to talk about that, and HR is the other one.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have the operator perspective here as well. So, just kind of starting on this topic at a really high level, right? This webinar is going to be about developing a more productive, resilient, and data-enabled workforce. Now, you can look at that and see that there's some buzzwords in there, but what does that mean, and why is that important today? Natalia, maybe we start with you, your perspective.
Yes. So first of all, I think this is one of the most critical topics within our clients in asset-intensive industries. When you think about productivity, we are obviously focusing on how to use efficiently our time and resources, how to deliver high quality and consistent work, and also how to continuously improve skills, right? What we really want to achieve, and the word resilient is especially important right now, is the ability also for this workforce to adapt to change, especially in those environments where we are facing organizational shifts, market fluctuations. I think this is becoming very critical in the recent years. But at the end of the day, what we really want to be able is to have a data-enabled workforce where employees understand how to interpret their data and how to use it. And this obviously comes by the fact that we need data accessible, timely, and also integrated into workflows. We also want to enforce a culture of curiosity, experimentation, and really how to endorse evidence-based thinking within the workforce.
No, I think that's really interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see, Andrew, your perspective here as well, right? How does this apply to you and your operations and your vision?
Yeah, I would say from an operational standpoint, we're more outcome driven, right? So to boil it down to four words that we look for in our outcomes, right? This four concepts. Concept number one, probably perhaps the most important concept in our industry. I don't think it's unique to Celanese, but I'm proud to say our industry has a responsible care approach to this. It's what we call zero harm, right? Zero harm to the employees, to the partners, to the environment, to the assets, right? Zero harm. That is non-negotiable, is a precondition to everything that we do at our company, and I'm pretty sure it's a precondition and taken very seriously in our entire industry. So that's principle outcome number one, is stewardship, zero harm. The second one is 100% quality. Yeah, we have customers who rely on us in the value chain, that we partner with our vendors to be in this value chain. So what we produce has to be 100% quality. And we'd like to have 100% reliable operations and reliable assets. Yeah. And to make all of that happen, we believe we need 100% engaged employees 100% of the time. These are the 4 North Star pillars, if you will, in our operations. And yeah, we believe that data has absolutely a critical role to play here, especially in manufacturing. And most of you who are manufacturing or operators, we have more data than we know what to do with, right? We are sensor driven, control driven, generating data every second, millisecond, minutes, right? So we'll talk more about what do you do with all of that data to achieve your 4 North Star pillars.
No, thanks, Andy. And what I really liked what you said there was that this is not just a chemicals or manufacturing problem, right? This is a larger industrial problem. And Torgrim, I know you've seen a lot of different customers and a lot of different operations. Like, what's your take? How is the broader industry starting to adapt and leverage data to empower their workers?
I think we have two trends. One is that data is becoming more accessible in general. We have the cloud, we have easy access to things. But in addition, we have this trend where less people have to do more. We have less people available that need to do something. So it's not only about making data available, it's also about automating the transformation from raw data that is easier than ever to collect to insight that has never been easier, but it's still hard to generate.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I feel like we've heard that data challenge for decades now, and it's only increasing to Andy's point. Like it's just increasing in complexity and quickly getting to insights is the big challenge here. So I think this is a good lead in to a little bit more of a deep dive on the context. And maybe Natalia and Andy, if y'all could spend some time on this.
Yes, of course. So one of the things that when we look for the Celanese journey, one of the most impactful things that is the mindset on the transformation of workflows. So today we see many organizations hindered by siloed information, unstructured process. We see decision making that is made through intuition or sometimes leading on expert professionals that are not always available. This leads to inefficiency, human errors, and also limited ability to handle change. But we believe in a transformation that leads the companies to a future state where data is fully integrated and accessible. We see decisions made based around real-time data and not just intuition. The processes are standardized, increasing efficiencies, and also the culture becomes more agile and adaptable to change. But at the end of the day, this is critical not only from the system perspective, but also for the individual perspective. So what we really did was a deep dive into critical roles, understanding how is the impact of this transformation into these roles, right? So if we think about it, today, an operator, for instance, they face fragmented system. They do a lot of repetitive and manual tasks. They have limited visibility in terms of what is changing and what is going on right now. Sometimes they see equipment failures or lack of reliability as a surprise. And, most of the action and processes are very reactive on the things that are happening at the moment. So we understand that, these challenges will pivot to more complex systems. There will become new challenges to this workforce. There will be more challenge to think about new technologies. There will be a challenge to kept up with all these changes in the world, but they will also have, the ability to be empowered by new tools, real-time insights. They will have some other features in terms of smart automation to meet all these demands. And, the way that these roles, they are motivated today, they will also shift, right? If we think about, hitting targets today and solving technical problems, tomorrow we are thinking more about how they will bring broader impact, they will contribute to strategic business outcomes, and they will have a more flexible and digitally connected environment. Also, the nature of the daily activities, right? One of the things that we realize, lots of the activities of an operator today are very focused on routine rounds and checklists. We understand that this will migrate to a more dynamic environment where they will have their daily activities more optimized based on the nature of the exceptions that they are seeing, and also ways to think about multiple scenarios on the tasks. This is also a very important shift in the way that we coordinate these resources to work on. And when it comes to the purpose, today we see a lot of this role very focused on maintaining and running the plant. But in the future, we see this role moving into how I dynamically optimize the operations and processes, and how the human talent can add value out of this. And instead of working on those routine activities. And again, this is all about a shift in the mindset as well, right? Technology and the tools, they can integrate systems, they can make the data available, but if you don't have this human factor integrated, I feel like this it's a critical factor for success. And one of the things that working very closely to Andy, and really it's something that is really amazing, is the fact that everything in Celanese puts people on the center. The decisions are based on how this process will transform people's lives. And I think this is a really important lesson learned. So one of the things that we discuss a lot is, technology will enable change, but people will actually drive it. That comes from, we have to first build trust, because, trust really what leads to confidence to execute those changes and to embrace those changes. Adoption will drive value. And at the end of the day, accountability will sustain performance. So this all factors combined, technology, the trust, the adoption, and the accountability are super important for the success.
Absolutely. I love the story that y'all painted here, but it's not always smooth sailing, right? I know that there are challenges that we see from our customers and prospects that y'all have had to work through. And a lot of it has to do with data, outdated ways of working, how to work with data, et cetera. And so maybe a question for you, Torgrim, here around just why is it so complex to get to data today? And what is the impact of those silos on a vision like what Andy and Natalia painted?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. We have been operating refineries and chemical plants for 100 years, right? So why is it harder now? And I would say it's never been easier, but with all the insight we are gathering, we're also gathering insight that aren't necessarily easy to comprehend. It requires education, it requires an understanding, it requires context to interpret information the right way. And because of the mass of information, there are obviously a lot of specialized systems that are best suited to store these the systems. I'm pretty sure Andy at Celanese have lots of tailored solutions that are necessary to handle various parts of their operations. Everything from managing laboratory data to even supply management, or even human resources data. You have different systems that of necessity need to handle these type of data. But the question is, do I need to stay there to make use of it? And I think that's the shift we see now in industry, where people realize that you still need to store the data and manage them at where the data belong, but that shouldn't be a blocker for consuming the data. And I think we are just now at that change in the industry, that where less people need to do more, you need to enable people easy access. We need to stop blocking the data by keeping them in those silos and rather liberate them from those silos, enabling people out in the field to make use of the information at through a surface or an angle that makes sense for them in the context where they are.
I think that's a great point. It leads into the next two buckets, right? You kind of mentioned the complexity of getting to data and then collaborating on problems. So, Natalia and Andy, how outdated ways of working? What does that impact, and what does that mean today? And like, what opportunities are there in the data workspace?
Yeah, we've been talking about this challenge on data, but you know, I agree with and what Andy said in the beginning. We are not short in data. We are short on meaning, right? You know, people at the end of the day, they don't need the numbers. They need to know what's happening now, why it matters, and what to do next. I think that's the real challenge that, you know, this industry been years, and this is not something new, right? This industry been years working on that foundation on how to create an environment where you bring those insights, what's happening, why it matters, and what to do next. So that's a real opportunity. And, you know, at the end of the day, data without context is just noise, right? There is no actionable insights. So I think that's the real transformation that we are seeing, coming from just having the data available, which is there, right? And we have plenty of it. And, you know, becoming, you know, in a way of working where you do have more context and information associated to it.
Andy, what's your take on that challenging data workspace? How do you want your experts working with data?
Yeah, I would say outdated ways of working. It's perhaps it could have negative connotations, but I would say, generally speaking, no one intentionally builds these ways of working, right? Think about your house. Recently, I moved, and we had to go through all the stuff and move it. I'm like, how did I get here, right? I promise you, it was not one day we just put all the stuff in the different places. It just builds over time, right? There's a problem, you solve it. There's another problem, you solve it, and you end up in a place where you're at. In terms of data challenges, there were two, for me personally speaking, there were two major hurdles to overcome in the last decade. Hurdle number one, if you saw, you know, that the picture of a industrial plant at the beginning, is concrete steel jungle. Yeah, connectivity. Connectivity was challenge number one to be overcome in the decade, right? Connectivity by itself is obviously useless, but to get the right data to the right person at the right place, you need connectivity inside that concrete jungle. That was barrier, challenge, whatever you want to call it, in terms of technology number one. Technology number two, the reality is of the situation is, listen, most industrial companies have tens, if not hundreds, of different applications for the specific uses. Yeah, you got your payroll system, you got your asset management system, you got your distributed control system, SIS system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Very for built purposes. Yeah, for built purposes. But then there was no really technology platform where we could bring it all together and make meaning of it until I would say maybe about 5 years ago. Or if there was, you couldn't afford it. It was not. It was cost prohibitive. So I think if you say, Andy, what changed over the last decades for you, I would say those are the two challenges that we have overcome. Now just about anybody can put in a 5G. Yeah, Wi-Fi is still prohibitive because ironically you spend 80% of your investment on cables for Wi-Fi to put in a wireless, right? So it kind of defeats the purpose. So with the proliferation of 5G and data platforms like Cognite, those two are the two fundamental game changers that allows you to overcome the challenge.
Now that's great to hear. And I wanted to hit on one really important point you made around with all these bespoke applications. It makes it really hard to scale something that's working to the next site, the next asset, et cetera, right? Because it's been crafted for a specific process. And even though there might be a lot of similarities, I know we've seen a lot from our customers where there's the same type of work process being done multiple ways because it's been built in that siloed way. So I think there's another challenge here around scaling, right? How do you scale and build consistency with the things that are working? And Torgrim, I think you've probably seen this a lot. Any insights on just that scaling problem?
Yeah, people are in the middle of all these processes, right? And people are quite slow to scale. So for us, we need to be able to automate our processes to do more, but automation includes abstraction and complexities as well. And we're talking about those silos in the previous slides, where the data are not necessarily hidden away, but they are in behind use interfaces and solutions which require specific training to be allowed to use or being able to use those systems. So just the fact that it's hard to access and interpret information, it's going to make it hard to scale, because you put people in the center that makes the scalability of it hard. You can create work processes and you can workflow it. But as soon as you're able to make a solid workflow, you're also very close to being able to automate the very same process. But then the question is, do you even have the tools to do the automation? And I think that's where the last 10, 15 years, where IT and operational technology has merged, allowing us to take the lessons learned from the IT space when it comes to process automation with data, and apply that with the industrial data, and through that automate way more of the processes that historically has been manual labor, either manually by populating spreadsheets and building Power BI dashboards, to actually automating the calculations and generations of insights.
Yep, and that kind of leads us to that future state, right? And this is technology that is already starting to mature very quickly, but you're talking about going from manual repetitive work to smarter ways of work. Can you maybe spend a little bit of time on that?
Yeah, if you look at the left side first, you have that the person in the center that needs to find information, look for insight, or look for information required to generate the insight, and the steps a person goes through to find information in the various data sources. I met a client once that said that the most commonly used app on his computer was actually the clipboard, because he was copying and pasting tag names, annotations, IDs between the applications when he was trying to find the data he was looking for. So on the right side, because you have what we in Cognite call a knowledge graph, where all this data are located together and linked together, it allows you to have one surface to browse all this data and build a context around what you are looking for. If you are a maintenance engineer, you get the maintenance data. If you are a process engineer, you get the process data. But you have a surface where all the data types you're dealing with, from diagrams and 3D and time series and so forth, are easily available. Not necessarily only to process or do something with the data, but even as a browsing tool to find information in the context relevant for you, giving you kind of the starting point for further analysis and troubleshooting or process optimization or whatever you want to do with the data.
I think this is a great example of what that end state looks like. But again, how do we bridge those challenges through to the technology, right? And I think this brings up a really interesting point around contextualization, right? This is used a bunch of different ways, but I'd love for each of y'all to define contextualization and then help us understand why it's important for your vision of these next gen operations. So maybe kicking it over to you, Natalia.
Yes, of course. So what I like about this previous session where, Torgrim presented how to navigate to data, what I feel like, it's really happening is, first of all, we are bridging the gap between raw data and decision making. But more than that, we are, coming from complex system to a story, right? So what we are seeing, all these connections between, multiple equipment and how, for instance, a failure mode can be tracked down and you can identify reasons for those deviations happening. This is a story, right, that someone needs to receive in a context. So I always feel like, contextualization is the ability to create a story based out of your data. And, this changes significantly the way that you process this information. Instead of a pump is vibrating, you start to see a pump is vibrating, it's more than it usually, happen. It's during, for instance, a peak load. The reason is probably cavitation. And, if nothing is done, it's probably will fail within 3 days. This is the story behind the fact that the pump is vibrating. And this is what we always say about, the actionable use of data and what to do next, right?
Yeah, for real. Crafting that data narrative is more powerful and more actionable than just the data in isolation, especially when you've got timing as well, right? You can't wait forever. You have to be able to analyze it efficiently,
Absolutely.
and the data narrative helps that. Andy, any thoughts here?
Yeah, but look at it from I mentioned the two major hurdles that in my view overcame the last decade or so was the platform that can make sense of this data. Most of us grow with relational data, right? Table 1, table 2, you join them with these two fields. This industrial data, I mean, just look at it. They have very little things in common, right? Time series data. How do you link that to a engineering diagram so that you can see where this equipment is, right? So you need a platform that can allow you to build relationships with data, because without that relationship, I think that is just noise. So you need a platform that can actually unite this data and make sense of it, because not everything is just direct relational. With this field is the key to this field, right? So that's the game changer in this platform. And if you can't connect the data, then you just have a bunch of data just sitting around. You can't make any relationships out of it. You can't make any use out of it. So you need a platform that can handle these different types of data, and then you need a little bit of artificial intelligence behind it so that it can find that relationship for you, because not everything is as straightforward as we'd like it for it to be.
No, and there's data at rest, but data is most often in motion as well, right? Or is very often in motion. And so, Torgrim, can you share a little bit about how that contextualization process helps make sure that data stays up to date and gets updated and handles all that data in motion?
Yeah. Historically, when we talk about organizing and linking data, it is typically done from the view of relational databases, where you have a schema or a model that says that a motor is related to a pump and so forth. But in the industrial data, you don't only have a relationship in models, you also have a relationship between items itself. And I love Natalia's example about the cavitating valve or pump, which is an excellent example where you have data from various data sources. You might have flow data or what is flowing through your pipes, what common chemical properties. That is one type of data stored in one type of database. You might have the pressure drops that you might get from your historian database, your control systems. Maybe you need to calculate the pressure in the vena contracta, which means that you need to have a pressure drop model. So you need somewhere to calculate something as well. You might have information about when was this valve or pump maintained the last time, the mean time between failure. That might be in a maintenance system. So it's just an example where data relevant to avoiding, predicting, or fixing these type of challenges are spread around, and you can only make intelligent assumptions by looking at data in context. So in Cognite, we're doing that by pulling data from the various data sources, and we're populating data models. But those data models, while they represent a schema and relationship, we are also contextualizing the data items, the instances inside the model, allowing us to look at what actually is written in the long text of this service notification. How can we interpret that? Or, hey, what is written in this laboratory result of the fluid that is flowing through these pipes? These type of data are typically hidden in long reports, in text and PDF documents, things that are not captured by the models themselves, and you can only make sense of it if you actually also screening and process the data items itself. So it's not only about liberating data from databases and systems, it's also making them available for systems to process it by pulling them out of PDFs, AutoCAD drawings, even pulling out insight from time series, understanding why do you have this drop? Is it a shutdown? Is it an outage? Is it an error on the sensor? To pulling out that information from data itself. That's an important part of the contextualization that is easy to forget when we're talking about big systems that are linking together. It's also about contextualization of the instances themselves.
Gotcha. And I think it becomes really interesting, especially in the context of AI, right? You mentioned a lot of unstructured data. And so I think contextualization kind of sits at the core of a couple different areas. There's empowering smarter digital tools, there's scaling across sites, and then there's also enabling AI. And I think everyone's thinking about AI these days. Uh, Andy, I'm sure you've got a perspective. Natalia, you've got a perspective. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, in terms of AI, so I mentioned very early on that manufacturing, especially in process industries, hundreds of years worth of data collection because we need it for control, we need it for safe operations, right? There's no shortage of that, right? But when you start bringing that and tying it to your engineering documents, tying it to your maintenance practices, and tying it to your assets, and now you have literally two things to solve. One is try to connect the data. So I think AI plays an absolutely a role in that. It can learn relationships between data sources coming in. That's sort of fundamental thing that you can use AI for. But now, let's say you contextualize all this data. Now you literally have literally trillions of data records. What are you going to do with it? Run Excel, run some sort of BI analytics on it, on trillions of data to look for something? That's just, for the human brain, that's, for most human typical brain, is probably not pragmatic, right? So we leverage AI for simple things like anomaly detections. Yeah, literally parse trillions of data in a connected sense and look for anomalies. That's just one baby example of where we need the AI on top of the contextualized data.
And Natalia, I know y'all have done a lot of work with AI. What's your thought?
Yeah, so there is a reason why there is so much trend on this topic. For me, it's very transformational to see the impact of leveraging, Gen AI as a layer of simplicity between, the users and, a whole complex of data models that are behind the scenes, right? So, when we think about this journey with Celanese and Joe AI, we discovered a lot of things throughout this path. So initially, we thought about Joe AI as a use case, as many others within the program. And what we realized was way more than a use case, because it's transversional, a way for people to, in natural language, to speak with the asset, we speak with the equipment, we speak with the steel. Behind the scenes, Joe AI is leveraging multiple models and many AI agents. So it's very complex the way that it deals with these different types of non-linearities. We are talking about equipment failure modes. We are talking about different types of event analysis through real-time data. Those are very complex models, but someone would talk to Joe AI just exactly the way that we are talking right now, and they will access based on the way that is parameterized in terms of how we, put context out of it. And you identify all these models that need to be structured to come up with that answer with a good reliability and context. Again, and to me, it's a path, the journey to, a more structured data platform, the journey on believing on the data contextualization and the power of data contextualization. That's what led Celanese to be an AI ready company to really leverage the capabilities through Joe AI. So this is a very nice story, and there is so much more to unfold, and we are still discovering ways of working and how to transform work processes through this technology. But at the end of the day, what we are doing here is to transform data into a system of intelligence, that will resonate in the operations as that famous asset guru, the person that knows a lot, has tons of experience based out of their perception of the reality and what happened in the past. This is something that we can definitely accelerate, and to have more availability of those resources to, for instance, young people that are coming into the workforce. One of the things that one of the powerful things that we have now in Celanese is we have a large amount of users, around 5K users. So with that, we are also learning from these users how they interact with this technology. And one of the things that we realized that, the most frequent word used was the word help. And what we realize is people need help, but they are not always comfortable to ask for help for someone that is more experienced in the organization, that maybe have, a higher hierarchical role. So this is also the ability to provide help for people that are, interested on learning and have some sort of issue within their activities.
I think those are some excellent points. And Torgrim, one other thing I wanted to mention here is the link between contextualized data and trust, right? And how, if you're going to go down that AI path, how do you know that AI is giving you the right outputs?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When we get data from the source systems, everybody knows that data have varying degree of quality. And everybody's been using public chatbots and AI tools on the internet also knows that sometimes you get weird answers as well. So you have two data quality challenges. You have the quality of the AI agents as well, especially when it comes to LLMs, and you have the quality of the data that is coming in. So you have two ways to handle that. On the data injection side, you have various means, at least Cognite provides various means to clean up and add quality control of the data so you can establish a foundation of trusted insight. And that trusted insight, by turning that into context relevant for the AI agents, that helps the agents to provide more correct answers because it's relying on the context you provide rather than doing statistical analysis on something it finds on the internet. So the knowledge graph, or that base of information that is generated act as the foundation for data that is leveraged by the AI. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a human approachable interface to ask questions like Natalie was pointing out. You can chat with somebody, but the answers are founded in the trusted data that has been contextualized on the IT side.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I just trust is super important, and I love how you linked it back to that human element as well, right? We're about making humans more productive, more powerful, more enabled. Shifting gears here a little bit, right? So bringing this technology and bringing contextualization into the operational space is challenging, right? You need a mix of the technical components as well as the domain expertise. Natalia, could you speak a little bit about how Cognite and Radix work together to bring that to customers like Celanese and others?
Yes. So one of the things that we were talking was, about how the data platform really accelerate and help to scale. And this is something that we definitely saw, like in reality, when we started work with Cognite. In the past, there was a lot of custom deployment that, sometimes they had lower development, but also they were fragile in terms of how you scale throughout many sites and you incorporate more use cases. Leveraging Cognite, we now have the templates, we shared logic, we have a scalable architecture, and we have the contextualization to enrich data. And so we can use, for instance, AI to identify root causes, make predictions, and, to recommend actions. So at the end of the day, what we really are better together story really connect two partners that, one comes to enable scale, and, one service partner like Radix that ensure relevance and impact. So at the end of the day, it's all about speed, scale, and sustainable value, right? And together we solved real problems faster, with this combination of expertise, that, it's really about the ability to come with, to say what data matters and why it matters, right? How the assets should behave under different conditions, what kind of failure modes are relevant, and identify with the users the potential of the use of their data for something that is relevant to their business. This is what, Radix come to the table, and, accelerating this infrastructure to really create scalable impact, to use the right data the right way, and also with deep understanding of that specific industrial reality.
Fantastic. And bringing this full circle, right? The point here is to create value in operations. And Andy, I know you've been focused on a whole bunch of these families of use cases. Can you explain or talk a little bit about how this has helped you with your roadmap and helped you start delivering on some of these big ideas?
Yeah, I think probably going to be repeating ourselves. We touched on a lot of these things, but let me just again start off with what is near and dear to our company and to our industry, which is safety. Yeah, anytime we can leverage technology, training, people, process, whatever we have to deploy to make risk identification, risk mitigation better for our people, we will do. Work permits in our industry is obviously a very critical thing. That you need to know what you're doing before you're authorized to do it. So if we can leverage technology to identify the risks and we address them in our work permitting process is absolutely a must do for us and for everyone in our industry. Maintenance, I will tell you a funny story. I'm sure some of you in your organization will probably have this argument, whether proactive preventative maintenance, is that cost avoidance or is that cost reduction? If y'all ever get my email, if you want to contact me and share your philosophies with me, that'd be great. When I mentioned this, one person said it was cost avoidance. I said, when was the last time you changed your oil? He said, last week. I'm like, you wasted your money then, right? So predictive maintenance, it goes to the root of our pillar for reliability. If we can predict something, we proactively either address it through a planned maintenance or obviously changing operation practices to protect the asset. And in my personal view, there's 100% correlation between maintenance, between reliability and safety. Yeah, everything that we do in reliability is honestly first and foremost is to make sure that enables safe operations. Then financial is a secondary outcome of that. We do envision someday a plant that can run itself, that it can optimize itself, that it can heal itself. It's like self-driving cars. It's a great ambition to have, but on the journey to that full self-driving cars, we have adaptive cruise control. We have lane departure warning, right? These are all the different components you need to have a self-driving cars, right? So we're doing some things on productions with humans about obviously to see how we can optimize the production processes and how is our AI learning from that on our journey to that. It's a long out journey to get to an autonomous plant, especially in our industry. I mentioned anomaly detections. Why do you have data historian, right? Well, probably because your distributed control system can't handle that volume of data, so you have to push it out somewhere because the brain needs to keep controlling the plant. But then you want to make sense of it, right? You want to look through those trillions of data records to predict, detect anomalies before they turn into something that's undesirable. Knowledge augmentation, we talked about. Natalia mentioned that's an actual story previous to this assignment. We had a compressor, again, out of Celanese, and it was the compressor for our unit. And if it's down, the entire plant is down. And there was one person, happened to be based in France, who knew how to repair it. That's it. And to bring that person in, you have to go through visa process, this, that, the other to get them in to see it. Can you imagine if all of that learning, all of the data was put somewhere where young fresh engineer coming out of college could have a head start? Yeah, you can't always replicate experience, but you can augment that experience with some previous knowledge. And yeah, and quality, as I mentioned, is one of our pillars. Some of our high performance products, quality is literally everything. So if we can monitor it real time and close loop it back to the source of production to address it before it gets anywhere outside the fence. These are some of the real life examples of what we either have done or envision in doing on our way of doing.
And just a quick follow-up there. How has been working with Radix and with the Cognite technology? Any comments there or learnings?
Yeah, I will just keep harping on the fact that platforms like Cognite is the game changer in the last decade. There is no sugarcoating that. There's no there's no way around it. That platform is a game changer for you to bring everything together, contextualize it, and then of course build workflows on top of that. So platform is pretty clear. In terms of building the workflows around it, typically, why would you partner with somebody outside your fence? Typically, what I found that you either partner with people because you don't have the experience or you don't have the capacity, or in some cases, maybe both, right? So companies like Radix helped us with definitely with the capacity issue and obviously skill set and industry experience issue as well to build some of these call it use cases, call it digital capabilities, right? So that's the two partnership together and us as an operator been instrumental in our journey.
Well, we definitely appreciate the kind words there, Andy. And I wanted to end on one more slide here on just larger play. What are some of the lessons learned here? I know we've probably got a perspective, Natalia, y'all have a perspective, but what are some of the lessons learned of this approach, of this technology? What are your thoughts?
So
Yeah,
you wanna
you want to go first?
jump in? Andrew, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
would say, yeah, I think we didn't put this on the slide because I think most of us, especially in the digital, technology practice, um, perhaps overuse it. Yeah, the whole people process technology, right? We say it so much that it loses its meaning, right? So you might think, well, I came on a technology, webinar, hoping that the sequence changed. It was technology. It wasn't. For us, it still is the people. I mean, when I started this journey 4 years ago, I started with the person that I wanted to bring on board, who had vision, who could drive things, who could think big, who could literally think transformatively. So it still starts with the people. And then we went to the processes. And then we found the technology. We sort of, you say, well, Andy, what about the two enabling factor? You said the technology, the connectivity and the platform. But we knew technology was available. But we still start with the people, and then we started with the processes, workflows, etc. And then we deployed the technology to make all that happen. Yeah. So if we were to do it again, we would do it the same way. There are two sort of these two camps. One is like thinks transformatively, thinks like clean sheet of paper, if you will, and thinks about the art of the possible, and then works it backward to how they need to get there, and what's the value, and what's the journey, and who you need to partner with to get there. The other common approach I have seen is people start with use cases. Respectfully, I think use cases is how historically we grew up. You had a use case for leak detection, you found a solution for it. You had a use case for incident management, you found the solution for it. You named the use case, you found the solution for it. So this is Andy Penton's personal opinion. I would start with the big picture and decide that I want to do transformation, and then work backward. Then when you do that, then it lends itself to what are the use cases, what are the digital capabilities that has the biggest impact, highest value, right, in terms of engagement, quality, etc. So that's what I learned over the years, taking the use case solution approach. I changed that 4 years ago, started the other way. And I would probably do that again.
Gotcha. Natalia, I know you had a few thoughts here.
Yeah, it's hard to follow now, Andy. That was perfect. I think those three components, right? Agile system, holistic teams, this is all about how to structure the work, to make people actually collaborative, and also how to make the multiple parties that are involved in a large initiative accountable for their actions and activities. When it comes to scalability, this it's a critical component to leverage adoption. And adoption for us was a core KPI for the whole program, because there is a strong belief that adoption is where the digital transformation really becomes a cultural transformation, right? It's within adoption that we make jobs easier, safer. We make the solutions really impactful. Value comes out of scale. This is super critical, and that includes all the change management activities, the coaching, the feedback loops, and really putting people in the center, which is easy to say and really hard to do at the end of the day, right? And again, the fact that we have an environment that really endorses collaboration in a true way, where everyone wins when someone wins, right? So at the end of the day, what we see is, it's not just a tech implementation, it's really creating the foundation for competitive advantage, for really building the future. How does a future will look like, and to collaborate on those areas.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, Torgrim, what are your thoughts? What have you seen from your prospects and customers?
Yeah, I want to echo what Andy said about use cases versus the data platform. There are thousands of use cases and challenges to solve, but there are likely not that many data sources you need to deal with. So by establishing the data platform very early, you can efficiently drive lots of use cases way more efficiently, because most of those use cases likely need the same amount of information. But then you often hear from our clients that, yeah, but my data is so dirty, or, oh, in that country they use that standard, in this country use that standard. But things are most often less complex, or less noisy, or less standardized than the clients think. When we have an insight into how the data system works and how the context works for the end users, is most often, that's just my experience, way easier to extract and contextualize this information than what people believe when they have not had experience with the type of platforms and the solutions that Cognite brings. And I think that's proven both in Celanese with Celanese and Radix, the amount of solutions and what they have achieved in so fast time.
No, I think that's a great place to end. I wanted to thank you all for your thoughts. I do want to make sure there's a few minutes for Q&A, because I saw a few of those come in. So let me just see what we can address here in the next few minutes. There's one question here around, in the same way we pursue physical asset reliability, it becomes more and more important for process data reliability. Does such solution help in some way to detect process data inconsistencies like uncalibrated instrumentation, biased mass, and energy balances? It's a pretty technical one there, but maybe one for you, Torgrim?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, digital twins also require maintenance, right? When you are creating a digital representation of a pump, that twin also need to have maintenance, and maintainability is crucial for these type of solutions. I mean, you can go online and pull your credit card and buy a solution from Cognite within a few seconds, but it still need to be set up. So don't underestimate the time it is required to maintain solutions you buy. And if the solution is made the right way, maintainability is a crucial part of it. And maintainability of digital twins is exactly not only tied to the quality of data coming in, but also the quality of the model. Is it still up to date? Do I still have the same sensor I installed according to my procedures 20 years ago? Or maybe there are now self-calibrating sensors that requires a completely different process, and that could allow me to start up the plant way faster if I don't need to calibrate my sensors every single time. So think about digital twins as also maintainable items.
No, great perspective there. Got a question here on scaling as well. How are you managing the scaling from one asset to the next when you have different standards, nomenclature, and systems in place at each asset? This is a great question. Andy, Natalia, any thoughts there?
Yeah, and
Yeah. Go ahead, Natalia.
no, I was just going to say, Andy, at the end of the day, I think that was the real leverage that we got by using CDF for this front was really the ability to replicate templates, but also, the connection with the solution data models that are very specific to, for instance, one use case or an asset that was very different from the other. In Celanese specifically, we have a very special situation where they have multiple products, assets that are very different from each other. So not every use case were relevant to the other. So there was a specificity that we have to take care. But still, we got the ability to leverage the infrastructure to accelerate those deployments.
Did you want to add anything there, Andy?
In the interest of time, that's perfect. Thanks, Natalia.
Fantastic. All right, one last question here. In a greenfield project environment, at what stage can cross-functional teams begin contributing value to prevent data silos, improve document control, and implement process simulations? What strategies and frameworks are most effective? Maybe a quick response from each of y'all on that one. Torgrim, do you want to kick us off? Or no, Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, from an operator standpoint, I would say, again, as I said earlier, I would start with the big picture in mind. If you already have a vision of what your asset operation needs to look like, and you have that blueprint, whatever you want to call it, then start deploying it, I would say, at the engineering phase.
Torgrim, anything you want to add there?
Openness. There are lots of good tools out there. Pick tools and solutions that are open, that allows interchangeability between systems. Data should not be stuck down in silos. They need to be made available.
Yep. And Natalia, do you want the last word here?
Yeah, no, I agree with all. I think, those are those kind of cases where it comes that cliche that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. That is the ideal, as soon as possible to interact and to identify those workflows. But we know that in reality, that's not possible. So let's plant a tree today. And we have multiple examples on how to integrate brownfield assets as well, right?
Yep. Well, great. Well, we are at time. This is the fastest hour ever. I just wanted to say thank you all for all of your unique perspectives. Well, if there are other questions, please send them to gabe.prado@cognite.com. That's my email. I will make sure we get an answer for you. And again, thank you for all attending. Fantastic questions, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.